Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another NIKKE song reaction. Today we have the 2025 Cash Shop background music, Jump Up. A lot of individual people had been requesting this one over the last few videos, but especially in the last video, it got the most votes on a comment, so of course I'm here to listen to this one. And I will say I will not be listening to the 10-minute version, I will be listening to the much shorter 2.5-minute version, partially due to time constriction for today. I have work pretty soon, partially because I did have a friend of mine and listen, and they said that it really isn't enough of a difference to listen to all 10 minutes unless I want to continue listening to effectively the same thing, and I'm going to trust their opinion on that. If there are slight differences, I apologize, I won't be hearing those, but my main goal is just to get the overall essence of the song injected into my veins so I can at least make an assumption about it and figure out what the song's all about. So without further ado, let's go! Oh, my goodness. That was immediate. Okay. Ooh. I like where this is going. Ooh, got some scratch. First then the zone 0, now this? What's going on? I kind of wonder if this genre is making a comeback or something. There's been too many musicians using it lately. Not that I'm complaining. Love that guitar pluck. Jazzy on the piano too. I love this sample fusion, because it's like a little bit of everything. It's got a bit of every modern genre in it. Yeah, I'm finding myself vibing. Maybe I do need to listen to the 10-minute version. I love how he's pasting all of these different samples in here. It's gonna fade out from there. All right. Man, I love that. Okay, so I did click through the 10-minute version just to see if there was any major differences, and my friend was correct. There is basically nothing new introduced. It's all just kind of a loop with some slight variants, maybe, but I didn't listen to all of it all the way through, so maybe I was just remembering things different. Point being, it's all basically the same song, but still, what an awesome track. I love how he did this, and I really do love that this sound specifically is making some sort of a resurgence happen. Like, there's something going on where multiple musicians now in the past like 2 weeks or so that I've heard have had this same genre be like what they're going for. It's like this sample heavy early hip hop funk blend mishmash sort of concept where like they did this a lot, especially in the 90s. They would take something like a hip-hop beat and basically just sprinkle some samples of whatever worked around it and just made it a little bit more modern, a little bit more fun, and they'd use it for either just straight up beats, or they would of course maybe sometimes throw on a rap verse or two over top of it. There is some vocal chopping in there and some random samples thrown in for the vocals, but not anything that I would say is like specific to what the song is talking about. Like, there's no real story, I suppose. It's just probably presets that Cosmograph got off some pack somewhere. Those are very popular in all of electronic music, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just grabbed these from some random library he already had lying around and just hadn't used yet, and decided to utilize them for something, because they work for stuff like this. Something you could just take melodically and kit bash together to make something new is how all of that exact genre was kind of made to begin with. Back when they made songs like this, when this genre was the most popular, basically all you had to work with was analog equipment and stuff that you could just grab from existing sources. So people would take old records, and that's where scratching came from. Sometimes they would sample the actual vocal lines and layer them over new stuff that they had written. Something that was maybe a little bit newer, like synths, which had only shown up in the last couple of decades at that time. And throwing these older tracks, some stuff from jazz, some stuff from older funk recordings, and just making something work. In this case, I'm not sure how much he actually sampled of the instrumental, or if he did fully compose all of that and just used his own samples. It's also possible some of the stuff we're hearing in this is stuff that he had around for a while and just didn't use for anything. And this song came around and he's like, oh, I could use that old recording from like a year ago, this old riff I put together that didn't work for anything else. That's why musicians tend to have like a library of old stuff or work in progresses, because even if you don't use it for the thing you were planning on, there's still a very good possibility you might at some point utilize it for something like this, especially if you're a multi-genre creator like this guy. So it's very possible that's what he did, and I'm not obviously positive on that, but I would not be surprised in the slightest. But as is the case with any song that does this sort of sampling, I always find myself wondering what the sample sources are. Like I said, for example, he could have just pulled all the vocal stuff from some random library that some musician had somebody come in and record for their own personal use, and then just put the rest up online or something. That happens quite often. Or if it was an actual song that he pulled the lyrics from, and there's obviously two different vocalists, so it's possible there's a couple different sources there, as well as even down to the drum beat, it could have been pulled from an existing song and just looped, basically. So I always find myself going, ooh, like, what are the sources? Because it's usually some weird, obscure piece of music when they do that sort of thing. For that beat, for example, that's a very common beat. It's one of the most sampled styles of beat that is in all of hip-hop drums. But at the same time, all of the guitar samples and such in there feel a little too clean, so I think those might just be Cosmograph's own personal work. Usually when you sample something, it's obviously going to be not the best of quality because you're resampling it and then compressing it further when you make the final song, so it ends up sounding a little worse no matter what you do. But this sounds a little too clean. But it's also possible he sampled something that was digitally uploaded, which would have a lot less artifacting than an analog source like they used to do for this sort of thing. Either way, I always find myself curious, so like, if Cosmograph ends up seeing this at some point, I gotta know where some of these are from, or if they're all just your work and your own personal sample library that you've had lying around, because even if it is that, I would still love to know. I just like hearing how musicians get these sorts of things. I don't really do sample stuff. I just kind of chill on my drum kit and don't do much with actual composition, so I like nerding out and seeing where people get their musical sources from, or if it is just legitimately all you. That means that he came up with these samples to utilize them to make them sound like they were sampled, which in its own right is such a skill level above for me that I don't even know where to start. So I think that's about all I gotta say for this one. It was really fun. I definitely was vibing along with it, and I'm gonna be listening to that 10-minute version in my own free time for sure. I don't get tired of songs like this at all. It takes forever for me to get fatigued from a track that's just this much of a vibe. So thank you all so very much for watching. If you have any other songs you want me to listen to, I've seen a few others in the comments as well, of course, so request those again and see if they get to the top of the list this time, and maybe I'll get to that one next time. And of course, if you just like this video and you want to follow me and support me for those in the future, you know how to do all that, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye!